Okay, my name is Dr. Randall Osborne, and I am a professor of psychology here at Texas State. And I created the undergraduate minor in sports psychology for our department back in 2003, and it first was offered in 2004. I received my undergraduate degree from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and my PhD from the University of Texas at Austin in social psychology. And so the sort of expertise that I bring to the sports psychology area is in understanding the social psychology aspects of it, which is essentially how people influence each other. So how coaches can do a better job of coaching their athletes, how athletes can do a better job of motivating each other, how we can understand athletes' issues in terms of how psychology might be affecting their performance. Okay, sports psychology as a profession is very open. It makes it very difficult sometimes for students to know what to do because there's not a direct career path. Take this course, pursue this degree, get this job like there is in some areas. But at the same time, that also means that there's lots of different ways that you can do it. Some of our students will receive their bachelor's degree in psychology, their minor in sports psychology, and then will go on to get a master's degree in like exercise and sports science or something like that. And so you can pursue sports psychology as a profession with a lot of different degrees. You cannot call yourself a practicing sports psychologist without a doctoral degree in some kind of certification. So the International Association of Applied Sports Psychologists, for example, has a certification called a Certified Sport Consultant, which students can pursue. Receiving a master's degree doesn't have to be in psychology, it could be in exercise science or something like that. And then various internship hours. And essentially, if you meet those qualifications, then you can become categorized as a Certified Sport Consultant. There will be more and more master's and doctoral programs in sports psychology that students will be able to actually point to and say, I'm going to apply there. I think it'll become easier over time to define a career path in sports psychology because it'll become better known. Where you'll see more of it will be with things like high schools and colleges, because right now where most people are getting hired, they're getting hired by the athletes that have the money to be able to hire somebody to be a sports psychologist for them, or to it's sort of like a life coach kind of thing. But I think that people are beginning to figure out that so much about like think about at Texas State, for example. If you're an athlete at Texas State, you're not just an athlete, you're a student athlete. And that means that it's not just about your athletic performance, but it's also about who you are as a student. And so you have multiple roles that you're playing in your life. And people are beginning to understand that psychology can help us to not only help that athlete perform better on the field, but also help that athlete perform better as a student. I tell my students in my undergraduate class all the time, we seem to forget that athletes are people. And psychology helps us understand how to help them be more effective as people. An athlete's going to have the same kind of issues, psychological issues that everybody deals with, but it's going to affect their performance in a visible way because we see that performance on the court or on the field. And so when an athlete walks out onto the football field, for example, they're not just a trained body walking out there, they're a human being, and they're going to carry their problems with them, and those problems can affect their performance. So sports psychology will try to address those issues so that the person has the opportunity to perform at their peak level. Like I said, I think the hardest thing to explain to people is how to get a job, and that's what's really frustrating for me as the advisor for the minor in sports psychology, because I don't have a real great answer to that question. There are master's degrees in exercise and sports science, for example, at the University of North Texas, and they have a sports psychology facility. But it's such a kind of a relatively new area in psychology that it's really hard to get into a defined career path where you could, like, I have some people that say, well, I want to work with the Dallas Cowboys. That's probably not going to happen. So what you need to do is think about what skills do I have as a psychologist, and then how can I apply those skills in a sports situation. So doing internship and stuff at the undergraduate and graduate level will be helpful to help demonstrate to people what skills you can bring to the job. That's the hardest thing about pursuing a career in sports psychology, is trying to figure out how to actually go about getting credentialed so that you have recognized expertise to be hired by somebody to do it.